Hey everybody, welcome to Drive Thru Review 643. Today we're going to take a look at Narcos, the board game. This is coming out from Simon Inc., or it just came out actually. Now this is based on the Narcos series that's on Netflix currently. I believe it's in its fourth season, and I'm a huge fan of that Netflix series. So this board game basically covers the first two seasons, if you're familiar with it, and the Netflix show, and hence the board game, also cover basically real life events. Pablo Escobar and the DEA and several other folks trying to catch Pablo Escobar is what's at focus here. Now, the mechanics of the game are sort of like Fury of Dracula, Scotland Yard, that kind of game where it's sort of a hidden movement deduction game. One player is playing like the quote-unquote bad guy, trying to not get caught. And then the other players, it could be just one other player, or in this case up to four other players working as a team to try to catch them. Now, the mechanics and everything, the process of how the game works are very much different than Scotland Yard or Fury of Dracula and most of the games in that style. So let's take a look at how the game actually works. Then I'll come back and tell you what I think. So here is the main board, and this is where Pablo's going to be trying to do his criminal drug dealing activities, and then the players, which comprise law enforcement as well as other competing cartels, are going to be moving their figures around. Now, Pablo doesn't really move around the board that's in a way that's typical of this kind of game. He actually has a miniature for himself here, and this just goes up here on this kind of score track up here. And one of the ways that Pablo can win the game is to maneuver this all the way up to here to get to 20 glory points. If he ever does that, then that player will win the game. The other way that Pablo can win is if he completes objectives. So here's kind of Pablo's dashboard. You can see he's got some of his sicarios. These are like his little lieutenants and button men and that kind of stuff. And then through the course of the game, he's going to have here 3 objective cards to start. He may get more as the game progresses. And at the beginning of each season or each round, you're going to reveal one of these. Once you've completed 3 of these, then that's another way that Pablo can win the game. And there's also some bonuses and things that you'll get for completing these as well. Now, the way that the other players win is by catching Pablo twice. So they've got to catch him once and then catch him again. Again, Pablo can win by either completing objectives or getting to 20 glory points. Now, Pablo is also going to get a player sheet out of this pad of paper here. They're going to write down their starting location. You can see I put 04 here. And then different actions or the end of the round are going to trigger a movement. But you're not moving around during Pablo's turn. What you're doing is you're playing cards out of this Patron deck. Now you can see these little nameplates here, like here's Poison and Limon and stuff like that. So these are actually random, these first 5 here. So I believe there's 8 total. And so you're going to randomly deal cards out of this deck, and then you're going to assign these different characters to these different slots and these different colors. But you're also always going to have Leon and La Kika in the game, every single game, and their cards will be in this deck. So on your turn, you're going to play from your hand of cards here. You can see Limon. So if I play Limon, then I can go ahead and activate Limon or move him on the board and so on. And then sometimes if you want, you can do extra action with the card. Now there's also cards here that are sort of like a wild card with a sort of silhouette. If you play one of those, you can activate any of these sort of basic 5 sicarios. These 2 are sort of very special. They have some really cool abilities. You can only activate them by playing their particular card. So the way the round is going to work is Pablo's going to get 4 turns, and the players are going to get 4 turns. There's 4 other factions. So there's a Pablo turn. They'll play a card, activate one of these, do some other actions. It'll go over to the other players. They'll activate 2 of their figures, and then it goes back to Pablo. He plays back to one of the players that hasn't activated, back and forth. So it's Pablo turn, the rest of the players, Pablo, rest of the players. And then at the end of the round, Pablo will reveal himself where he is. He's going to use this little token here to show where he was, and if the players haven't caught him. And then he's going to pay some money to move a certain number of spaces and find a new hideout. So that's basically how the Patron or Pablo turn works. They play a card, activate the guys. Now the rest of the players are going to activate using this shared kind of, it's almost like a little worker placement board. So if it's my turn, I'm going to be one of these 4 factions here. So each faction gets cards that are going to represent their different figures on the board. So if you're playing the Kali cartel, who also are not great people, you're going to have figures for each of these two guys. So Navigante and Pacho, and then they have a little special card here because they also like to collect cocaine and stuff like that, which I'll explain in a second. So we decided, okay, Pablo's gone. Now the Cali cartel is going to activate. They're going to activate these two figures, and then their turn will be over. And so there's also cards here for, let's see, the Policia Nacional. This is like the federal police here from Colombia. And then we also have the DEA, of course. These are the Americans helping out. And then we also have here Los Pepes, which is sort of like a weird right-wing / drug dealer kind of crazy people. So they will also be the other faction. Now there's also here a little special faction ability card. So Los Pepes here, they can, when they're doing an attack action, they can spend one of these and add +2. Now whenever you use these little cards like this, that's it for the game. So you're going to be very sort of discreet and careful about what you do with those. And for example here, the DEA has a few different things. They have this ability to, you know, move 2 extra spaces and so on. And there's a few other things like that. And then they also have the ability to clear off these action cards. Now most of your basic actions are going to be taking one of the displayed cards here and then activating one of these spots. So some of them you can see require a very specific number. So if I wanted to ask Pablo what type of terrain he's in, is he in a city or in the country, then I would have to use a number 2. If I wanted to get a range on Pablo, I'll explain how that works, you need a 3 and so on. You need a 1 here to see which region. Now you're going to take a card, let's say I destroyed 1 lab, and then I was able to place 2 barricades. So anytime you see an X here, the sort of strength of the power is going to be equal to the card number that you use. So I did my 2 actions, and then we're going to refresh this. Actually, this one will go away. And then you're going to refresh for the next player a fresh set of action cards here. And so on their turn, they'll be able to actually do these. But again, these are getting covered up. So when you do different actions, is going to be pretty important in terms of, you know, what Pablo's done, what do we know, and then when is the most opportune time to do these things, because these are going to get covered up, and at the end of the round, these are going to get all cleared off. So what are some kind of like basic actions and things that you can do? So let's talk about Pablo first. And all of Pablo's actions are going to radiate from their hidden location. Now again, the players aren't going to know that to start, but let's say for fun, I wrote down A5. Now when I activate a particular Sicario from playing either like a wild card like this or a specific card, I'm going to look at one thing. Let's just move these out of the way here. So you can see these 2 values here are going to represent a couple of different things about the Sicarios. This number here with the little kind of sound icon there, 3, 4, 5 in this case, that's the range at which you can play and activate and deploy, I should say, that particular Sicario from Pablo. So if I play this one here and activated this character, Limon, I can place him 3 spaces away from Pablo. If I activated Velasco here, I could do him 4 spaces away. And the number here with this little cross is the number of glory points they are worth if they're still on the board. They haven't been attacked and knocked out, and then you know, they're still on the board at the end of the round. Basically, you get that number of points for just having them out there. So if I played, I wanted to activate here Limon. He's 3 spaces away. I'm in A5. They don't know that. So I could put him, if I wanted on A5, I could put him 3 spaces away. Let's see, 1, 2, 3 over here. That's 2 spaces away there. 3 spaces here. So if I put them there, then they have the ability here to use these little house tokens here to say, oh, okay, where could he be? You know, and they'll use these just as they wish. They are limited to the numbers of these tokens they can mark places with, but they know that I played Limon, and he has a range of 3. So anything that's 3 spaces away from him is legal. So they kind of will slowly start to dragnet around where you're deploying these guys and doing their actions. Now, once you deploy them, you can, if you want, pay $1. Pablo starts off with a little bit of money. It comes with these little cool cardboard tokens. They will generate money throughout the game. You can pay $1 to move them 3 spaces. So I could deploy them there and then go, okay, we're going to move him 1, 2, 3 or something. Move him over there or over here. And so you can do that. And then you can do a couple of different kind of basic actions. And you get 2 actions that you can do. So one thing you could do is you could put down in a city, you can put down one of these kind of control tokens here. Now these act as sort of a blocker for any of the other players to move into or through to get through. So that's just a way to kind of maybe protect certain areas, protect your Sicarios, maybe protect Pablo, or pretend like you're protecting Pablo. Now, one thing that the other players can do is they can destroy these, or they can also place these barricades in the cities. And then another thing that you could do is you can destroy them as Pablo on your turn. That's one thing to do. On another action, I could possibly place, let's put this little lab here. When you put a lab out, you put a little cocaine marker on there. So that's the other action that I can do. So for 2 actions, I can maybe play him over here, move him over there, and then my 2 actions would be, you know, throw that up there and then put this here. And that would be that turn for that character. Now sometimes you'll do extra abilities there. So this will say, in addition, you can do place 1 lab and 1 control token in the same region as the Sicario, and you can pay $3 to place 1 more token on any location, and so on. Now anytime that you spend money through one of the cards, like it says pay, you're actually going to give $1 of that to the Los Pepes player. So you got to be very careful. These abilities are really cool. You know, they're going to really help you, but then you're going to give them the ability to spend money to basically look at these sort of armor tokens, which I haven't spoken about. Now every round you're going to kind of shuffle these up and then decide where you're going to put down certain armor values. So you can see they're going to have a variety of different armor values, so you may want to protect certain Sicarios over others and so on, and kind of bluff with them as well. So one thing that the Los Pepes can do is they can spend money and kind of reveal those before they fight you and attack. Now these 2 characters here, Leon and Lakika, they have very special things that they can do. So when you place Leon, he can actually move 4 spaces for free. You don't have to pay the $1. And then when they end up in an airport, if they have any cocaine on them, they will immediately ship them. Whenever you ship cocaine, you get $4. Now, typically, everybody else, let's say Leon moves in here, he's there, we had cocaine on him, we're going to ship that. Now, all the other different Sicarios, if they're on there, they have to survive basically to the end of the round, and if they're on an airport, then they will ship the cocaine and they'll get $4. But that's only at the end of the round. Lakika here has a cool special ability where he can play these Plato or Plomo cards, and they get to look through these, and it's kind of like a devil's choice here. So let's say I chose this one. And this is an adjacent hunter here. So target hunter will play regularly, but then I get 3 points. They choose that, which is giving me 3 free points. Nobody wants to do that. Or they'll actually inactivate the target hunter. So a player that hasn't played yet, they'll have to deactivate that hunter, and when their turn comes around, they'll only have one of the hunters to actually do anything. And all of these are different things, but the right side is always inactivate a hunter, and the left side is do something cool for the Patron player. Now once you use one of these, it's out of the game, and then your choices are limited. But once you go through all of these and you've run through them all, then you can kind of redraw that deck, and then you get all the choices again. So that's kind of his special ability. So again, as the Patron player, you're trying to put a bunch of high scoring points guys out there, get points out of some of these cards here. Also trying to go along the way to completing objectives. Let's look at this random one here. So when you reveal this at the start of the round, you place 2 control tokens in any city location. While active, replace 1 defense token with the bomb token. So we're going to take one of these zeros out of here, obviously, and then we'll have a bomb token, and we'll put that face down on somebody there. And it says, if the Sicario with the bomb token ends the season in any city location, you complete the objective. So you're trying to do, bomb somebody. And then, so if you do that, then you'll have completed the objective, one of your 3 objectives, and you also get the bonus of remove 1 action card of value 3 from the Hunter's action deck. Because you're going to kind of weaken their resolve. So there's a bunch of stuff like that. Very thematic. Now, the other thing that the Patron player is going to want to do is at the end of the round, you're going to count up the number of labs that are on the board, and then you're going to bump up your income marker that many spaces. So let's say we're in this round and there's only 1 lab on there. You're still going to just move it up 1. It's always going to go up based on the number of labs. So the hunter players, all the other factions, are going to destroy those labs, because this is going to tell you how much income that Pablo is going to get at the start of the next round. So let's look at some of the other player actions. So first thing, obviously, capture Patron. You can use any number card here. That means you can move an extra space. Whenever you activate the figures as the player, they automatically get to move to 2 spaces. So you can move an extra space, and then they're going to name. And they can either name the space they're on, so C15, or they can pick one of these adjacent spaces and say, Pablo, are you there? And then Pablo has to say yes or no. Now, if he's caught, that's one of the catches. So if they catch him a second time, that's it. But then they can immediately move anywhere else on the board and then make that kind of their second and final hideout, other than moving at the end of the round. So that's how you can capture Patron. So next thing you can do is attack an adjacent Sicario. So you got to be in the space next to them. And your strength is going to be this number. And you have to actually beat their strength. But remember, there's ways to reveal what strength they are and beef up your attack strength and so on. So this is the strength you can attack with. Over here, this is the number of labs you can destroy. So the hunter players can move in and out of the labs as much as they want. The Kali player actually wants to move through them and capture the cocaine. Once they have 2 on this card, they can spend 2 of those to take any action here as if it was a 1 value. So that's a way to get kind of free actions there. But typically you want to destroy those labs. And this is the number of labs, again, that you can destroy. So you can destroy stuff that's adjacent to you or in the same spot. And similar over here to placing blockades or destroying the control token. So if I played a 2 here, I could place up to 2 of those or destroy 2 of those, or maybe destroy 1 of those and create 1 of those. And that, again, that's adjacent spots or spots that you're on. And then finally, we have these spaces here. So let's go through these. So there's 3 regions on the board. And then if you play a 1 here, then you can obviously do that one. And then you say, are you in the same region as my current active character? And then Pablo will say yes or no. This one here you can play 2 for. And you say, hey, are you in a city or a farmland? And they tell you which one. Then here, the range, if you play a 3, you're going to say, okay, what's your range to my character? So if you're currently, let's say, activating this character and you play the 3 for that character's action, Pablo's player will give you 2 numbers. They're going to give you 2 ranges. So I might give them a 5 and a 6 or a 3 and a 7. One of those has to be correct. And you're always counting the shortest distance. You don't do circles or anything. So if I'm here, I'll go, well, you're 3 away, because I'm not going to count around this way. So you give them a truthful number and then a lie. And so they know, okay, based on whatever. So that's what you do when you do the range action. And that's pretty much it, other than a couple of little special abilities. Again, the hunter players, the other factions, are trying to catch Pablo twice. And Pablo's trying to either get his 20 victory points way up there or complete 3 of his objectives. I should say, I did mention that you start with 3, but if you get caught the first time, especially like in the early rounds, you're going to reveal 1 more objective card or draw 2 more objective cards for one for each round that you haven't yet completed. Because typically a game lasts 3 seasons. I have seen it go 4, but you don't reveal any more objectives for those extra seasons if you get them. And that's pretty much the game. Okay, so that is Narcos. So we'll go through my 3 pillars of review. First is player count. I would say, gosh, I don't think it necessarily matters. Although when you play with 4, you're going to have 1 player as Patron or Pablo, and then 4 other players, I should say 5 players total, 4 other players as the other players. There's going to be way more discussion between all those players versus if it's just me versus Billy, and Billy's taking control. So Billy's just going to do his own thing and generally kind of debate with himself and not necessarily the other players. So having more players is going to take longer. So you might be kind of sitting there as the Patron player, kind of waiting through that. But it's super interesting and very tense and stressful to hear them debate, because you're like, oh gosh, I wish they would not listen to Billy, because Billy is totally on to me. Whereas Francesca is like, she's way off, right? So it's like, oh yeah, Francesca, she's totally, you're like, you're listening to this, and then like Billy or Francesca or whatever will convince the other one, and then you just start to sweat, and you're like, oh no, they figured out, the whole thing. So even though you're kind of like waiting for your turn a little bit longer with the 4 or 5 player game, it's still interesting because you're like, I wish they would just shut up and do the wrong thing. So, but if you get in with 2 players, it would be a little bit quicker and so on. So the play count, the time, I think you're going to look at, what does the box say? The box, does it give you hours on this? There we go. 100 minutes, so that's an hour and a half. I would say maybe. I mean, you can have it be short, especially like if Pablo gets caught or somehow is able to do the objectives quicker. So I think it's going to vary from, I can't see it being less than an hour. And I couldn't see it really going much more than 2. It could get to 2.5, maybe. Like your first game or something. Everybody's first game might go a little bit long. But in that hour to 2 hour ballpark is going to be about right. Again, based on the number of players, the amount of hemming and hawing that the other players do, trying to stress out about where Pablo could be and all that stuff. So it's going to be right in that hour. 100 minutes seems about right. A little bit more than an hour and a half, right? That seems about right. And then, of course, the last pillar of reviewing is, what is this like? Well, like I kind of said at the beginning, it's like Fury of Dracula or Scotland Yard or that kind of game. However, I think in the ways that it's different than those games is what really sets this apart. So I'll kind of jump into the review part of it now. Everybody at the table says this is now their favorite game of this type. Now, I've only played it twice, and I have to agree. But everybody I've talked to, no, this is Fear of Dracula kind of has been like within our group the favorite. Now, not everybody likes this kind of style of a game in our group. It's something that we sort of like to bring out kind of every once in a while. But there's a few of us that really like it. I can think of myself and like 2 or 3 other players that really like, okay, we're going to play this kind of, hidden movement deduction game. I'm part of that group. They all really liked it, and they said this is their favorite of this style of game. And I got to agree. I really got to agree, because the cool thing about this is it's such like an inverse way of Pablo moving. He doesn't really like move every turn and try to like run away and scoot away and then disappear. There is some of that though, because at the end of the round he scoots away. If he gets caught, he scoots away. But sort of that dragnet that starts to choke Pablo out every single round is really cool, because you're looking at the range of the different sicarios and the minions that you activate. So as a Pablo player, you got to be very careful with, sort of the order of stuff that you put out. And based on how you put them out, the ones that you can put further away that are less informative, they're going to not score you any points. The one that you put that's going to be only 2 spaces away is worth 5 points if you get them out. And so as a Pablo player, you have to watch, okay, which player is activated? Because once like the yellow player or the green player, whatever is activated, you know that like, okay, they're safe. So I can do stuff around them theoretically if none of the other players are close. And so you have to very meticulously and carefully start to do your different actions, because to win, you don't just have to evade, you have to do things. You have to score glory points. You need to make money to activate those cool special abilities on the cards, or even to sometimes siphon off to the objectives. And the objectives is another interesting thing, because again, instead of just running away, you have these objectives that you can complete, and the objectives sort of kind of go against the normal stuff you want to do, because you want to make money and sell cocaine and all that stuff and get points. But a lot of times they're like, well, instead of putting a control token out, you got to put one on this card whenever you take that action to put a control token out. And it's like, ooh, okay. Because those control tokens can, block them from moving in, or bluff like you're over here and all that kind of stuff. And you're like, well, I'm not going to put one on this card. It doesn't do anything, but it gets me closer to my objective. So there's a real kind of give and take there with all that stuff. So just that is such like a departure from the normal just, I'm trying to escape. He could have moved here, here, and here if we catch him, and then or else he's going to be gone and escape, and we've got to reset our dragnet and all that. So this still has some of that, but the way that, again, they kind of just circle, you kind of like circle the drain every single round. It's like, and then you hopefully escape or get caught. Now, both times that I've played this, it's been like a friggin' nail biter right at the end. I think we had one in the season 3 and one in season 4, and it came. And I played Pablo both times. I lost both times, but it came down to either they catch me at the very last turn around. Both games did this. They catch me at the very last activation for the players, or I'm going to win because I've got my objectives and all that. Because you've got to make it through the round there. And so I had enough points. I was going to have enough points based on the guys I had out. And so it was either you catch me or I win. And it always came down to like 3 spots. And they had to like just guess, because they were doing a capture action. So we know he's going to be in one of these 3 spots right next to each other. And it was just like a flip of the coin that either they found me or I win. And it was like, really a flip of the coin. And they freaking got me both times, which is aggravating. Because I'm like, well, I would have won if you picked this space or one of these 2 other spaces. And that's awesome that the game can just, you know, it just builds to that giant climactic moment, and it just evokes that, you know, severely. And it's so much pressure as the Patron player, because you're like, man, I'm such an idiot. But again, I'm playing against 4 people as well. Anyway, so it did the amount of pressure and stuff. If you like playing like as Dracula or Mr. X or whatever, this, I think it's going to satisfy you. And I think as the players, my friends have all liked it, and they like the kind of like the worker placement action. So you have that limited amount of stuff that you can do, and it's very important, you know, who does what and when to spend those special abilities. Because like I said in the walkthrough, once you spend those little mini cards that are special abilities, they're done, they're out. So you've got to really save them. And you know, both times, to be honest, Pablo's character, they get these cards, and I play it, and like there was like a collective groan in both games where they're like, oh, well, that card's bull crap. Different word. That card's bull crap, because it would just like, I'd pay like $10 and just be able to escape for free, or I would make it so I could like move around wherever I wanted and different weird things. They're like super powerful cards. And I'm like, I'm looking at the cards laughing. I'm like, this is way busted. But then I do it and they groan, and I'm like, well, you know, then we play it out, and it's like, I still like lost. So there's like really powerful cards. So when you're playing that stuff as the Pablo character, you're like, oh, cool, I can get out of it. And so I think there could be a perception where the other players are like, well, this is stupid because this character has these cards when you use that, and you bust out of it. And yeah, they're really strong, but I think they should be. Like, there's just a lot of strong cards in there, and you really got to know when to use them. And like I said, both games came down right to the wire. So I think in terms of like balance and stuff, because I was playing against players that enjoy this kind of game, you know, and they're pretty practiced gamers and all that stuff. So they were able to recover from those really dramatic moments when they cried foul. They were like, what? We were about to have you, you know. And then they're still able to come back and get a shot and randomly, I guess, win. But yeah, so I think that makes it really fun as the Patron player. Yeah, there's a lot of stress and all that, but you get these really cool special abilities and things, and dramatic moments throughout the course of the game. And then, you know, you're like doing stuff. You're like getting your drug operation going and trying to get guys to go ship it and build labs and build control tokens to kind of hide and cover guys up, you know, and because maybe you have like your little 5-point Sicario out there and you're just covering him up, but you're trying to pretend like you're doing that, and you're actually covering up for Pablo himself and all that. So there's a lot of kind of dimension as far as that goes. Yeah, so there's a lot of cooler things that I'm totally forgetting or not wanting to talk about because I don't want the video to go for an hour. But there's just lots of cool little kind of nooks and crannies and all the abilities and cards and moments and stuff like that for this game. The last thing I wanted to leave you with is there is always one game after I do my best of like the year. So I just did my best of 2018 list there before Christmas time around. And over the holidays, I played a lot of different games. I've been playing some new games. You'll see some reviews and stuff and stuff come up on the podcast. But this one would totally have been somewhere like in my top 10 of 2018. And there's always like one game because this came out like right at the end, and I didn't get a chance to play it until over the holidays and then recently again. And I'm like, oh man, this is so good. This game would have been right near like the top of that list. And definitely will stay in the collection and all that kind of stuff. So just kind of as a retroactive, this goes in the top 10 for last year, even though like I got it like right before Christmas, you know. So hard to get stuff played in that much time and then go, oh, this is one of my best games of the year when I like just played it. So yeah, definitely high recommend, especially if you like this kind of game. And even if you haven't really been a fan of Fury of Dracula and stuff, I think this does enough different that I would recommend at least giving this kind of thing a shot for sure. So that's Narcos. Thanks.